Greetings, greetings, greetings. You know, it's good to be off today, off, where you can just go do other stuff and all like that. It's good to be off. Good to be off today. Let me take my hat off because it's hot in here. It's hot. It is about 95 degrees in South Florida. 95. It's a lot. There's a heat wave going on, and I didn't plan on teaching or doing anything like that. That's why I was going to leave my hat on. But let's discuss independence, and let's discuss freedom for a second. Let's have a brief discussion on it, because a lot of people are doing whatever they do today for this civil day. And I just want to talk about overall. You know, I have not done how you doing, Brother Mark P? I have not done a car cam, not often. And, but independence, you know, just to talk a little bit about the country that we're here in, and whether or not whether or not we look or take into consideration the things that we deal with in this country, right? I thought about something, and it was the mere fact that I wanted to go back and look from the beginning of Israel's story in the scriptures. How many people actually worked for the government? And the first one that came to my mind was Joseph. Joseph worked for the government. That's what he did. He worked for the government. So a lot of people try to say, well, you know, I don't want to work for the government. I don't want to work for man. That's not biblical. That's not what the Lord wants us to do. But, you know, a job is a job. A job is a job. And when you look at it, Joseph was the viceroy over Egypt. Had he not had that position, brothers and sisters, I could tell you right off the bat, it would have been a possibility that Israel would have starved. In fact, he even said it. He said, listen, to his brothers, don't y'all be upset, because what you all did, what you thought they harmed, the Lord allowed that so that I can feed my people. So that's something to think about. Another person that comes to mind is when Nehemiah got a government grant from Artaxerxes to go back and build in Israel. He got a grant. He got a letter. And that letter said, whoever wants to go among the people of Israel, let them go. And when they come into your various lands and countries, give them something that they can go and do what they need to do. That was a government grant. The other person I think about is Daniel. Daniel worked for the government. He worked for Nebuchadnezzar. He had a very important strategic position. And the other presidents got upset with that brother, to the point that they caused him to be put into the lion's den. Just some interesting facts. So when I look at governments, I look at the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. Everybody has a civil day in their government somewhere around. Everybody does. There's a government, there's a civil day. Everybody has an independence and a day when they considered freedom. And in 1776, these colonies, these 13 states said, listen, we don't want to be under government rule from England anymore. We no longer want to be under the king's rule. Incidentally, when you really think about something, all of the 400-year doctrinaires out there, y'all know what I mean when I say that, the 400-year doctrinaires, and that's those that still believe that the 400 years is in America and it didn't already happen when it did, because the scriptures tells us. But I want you to think about America. America hasn't been a country for 400 years. It's not been a country at all for 400 years. So when you talk about the first slave ship came to the Americas or to the New World, that's what they really called it, the New World. It wasn't a country. It was under French. It was under the French. It was under the Scottish. It was under the English, the Britons. It was under, listen, it was a lot going on. This country did not belong to anybody when the first slave ship came over. This country was up for grabs. The natives were here. It was up for grabs. It did not belong to one particular group of people. People were coming from all over. The Irish Scottish came in. The Germans, yeah, there were Germans that came in. German settlers that came in. You had a lot of people that came in through various places along the east coast of the United States that we call the United States today. It was not called the United States then. There were only 13 colonies that came and formulated and wrote a Declaration of Independence from Britain. And the king said, no, I'm not giving you all your independence, because there was a lot of resources at stake. So the king said, no, not going to do it. So you had war after war. All since that Declaration of Independence came forth and started in July, and on the 4th, they were able to come up with a final version. But after that, brothers and sisters, that was just a group of people who were trying to claim a land that England, the French, and everybody else had put resources into. A lot of resources. So they were not going to come over and just let you have it. Some people were paid to come over. Some people were paid to come over. People were placed on ships, given land grants to come over. And when they came over, then all of a sudden they say, we want our independence. We no longer wanted to be under what they considered to be central rule, where you have a king running the country. They didn't want that anymore. So they formulated the Declaration of Independence. And what they did, they had no currency. They had no national dollar. The only thing that they knew that they could really come together on, and they sent representatives from each one of the colonies and said, yeah, we'll sign this. Let's let the king know that we no longer want to be a part of Britain. And man, let me tell you, war after war broke out. It broke out so furiously. It was rough. It was rough for everybody, every place. And they didn't know what they were going to do. They really didn't. They had no idea, excuse me on that. They had no idea what they were going to do. Like, what we're going to do? We don't want to be under Britain. And yet they're sending ships over with cannons, soldiers. We're outnumbered. But that war in December, that Trenton War, turned a lot of things around for George Washington. Turned a lot of things around. It was the start of America really getting their independence. Although they signed the Declaration of Independence, nope. It just wasn't going to go that easy. Wasn't going to go that easy. And then later on, they came up with how we're going to govern ourselves. How is each state going to govern itself? And each state, the way the United States was created, each state could have its own laws. Each state had its own statutes and rules because they had a common thing among them, and that common thing that we want to be independent. We no longer want to be ruled by the king. So they allowed them to do that, and then when they came together, they said, listen, we must create these United States. We must create something. And from there, they didn't agree on everything. They didn't agree. They established the Bill of Rights. They tried to amend the Declaration of Independence and the Articles of Confederation is what they called it, the Articles of Confederation. And that means that we want to form a confederate among ourselves. So the 13 colonies formed a confederation. But it needed some work. It needed some work. And they were going to have their president and everything like that. But it was going to be an election. And even when they couldn't agree on the Articles of Confederation, because you had the people on the north end, what they called the Yankees. The Yankees, they wanted to be in groups. They liked being ruled, a group ruling everything. But then the people in the South, they said, no, everybody's for themselves. We don't need that. We don't need to have something set up like that. So in order to come together, they formed the Bill of Rights. And the Bill of Rights was supposed to guarantee certain things. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Everybody would be created equal, but not the slaves. Not the slaves. Slaves are only considered to be 3/5 of a human. 3/5. And so the story goes on about America. But every country in the world has a history. Every country has a history. But as I had explained the other night, brothers and sisters, the kingdoms of this world are going to come down. And when Jesus returns, he will be Lord of lords, kings of kings. It's going to be ruled. The scripture says clearly that when Jesus returns, that the government will be upon his shoulders. Everything's going to be upon him. When you look at this election and what's going on, this is not the first time. Some of you younger people coming new into the truth, this seems all new to you. We've gone through this before. I've seen some stuff in my lifetime. I wouldn't consider myself to be too old of a fella, but I would tell you I'm old enough to know that there has been some things when it comes down to presidential elections. Even the ones that when I was a kid, and I go back and look at the things that happened in them, it was amazing. It was amazing. You know, I wasn't there. You know, you talking about the assassination of an American president. Wow. You know, so this country is still divided. It's been divided since the Articles of Confederation. It's been divided. The Bill of Rights. It's been divided. It's still divided today. And it's always been about having less government. Having less government to be in control. And the ones in the South wanted less government to be in control. Where the ones in the North, which you call the Yankees, and then you had the Dixies and the Yankees and the Dixies, they wanted less government control. That's your red states. And then you had your blue states, your Democrats, your Republicans. The Yankees turned out to be the Democrats, and the Dixies turned out to be the Republicans, and that's what we have today. And that ideology. Then you had people coming in from the Irish, Scottish. They had their own idea of stuff. You had Germans here. You know who brought the Germans here? The king did. The King of England. He brought them here as mercenaries, as a group of soldiers to really fight, because they had this barbaric way of fighting. That's what was happening after the Declaration of Independence was signed. That's what happened. So, you know, there's a lot in this land's history that some people say, well, does that have a lot to do with us? Yeah, it does. You were here. You were put in. Our ancestors was shipped here because of the rebelliousness and the sins of our biblical forefathers. And it's going to be this way until the Lord returns. It's going to be this way. So some people say, wow, you know, well, what about us being here for 400 years in this country? And again, I say, 1619, brothers and sisters, this was not a country. It's not a country. So some people say things and they don't think about stuff like that. When they try to say, and Genesis says, you'll be 400 years in a country, in a land. So you have to really think about that and consider that. But that being said, you know, I'm just glad to see many of you all. I'm going to be doing this for this month. I'll be coming on from time to time using the camera because I won't be able to be at my home studio and doing that, right? So it's going to be a little difficult going away. But that being said, just wanted to say hello to you all. Enjoy your day wherever you are. And it's a good day off. If you want to cook out, or whatever you want to do. It's a day off. It's a federal holiday in this country. And I'm going to take it. And I'm going to acknowledge the day off. And I'm going to enjoy myself. So that being said, peace and blessings to you, brothers and sisters.